we know at the same time there's inherently going to be a lot of challenges going to come with that, not because it's marriage, because you have this label now and that dictates all this hardship. It's
Right.
because life is still happening at the same time. And
Yes.
then to your point, what you were just saying, you're trying to merge two people's lives, fully integrate them. Why
Hmm.
is dating easier? Because I'm still sort of living my own life. I'm not saying we coexist, but I'm still kind of doing my own thing. You're
Yeah.
more or less doing your own thing. When we decide to marry, these paths have to align now. So we have to talk about a lot of stuff to try to make sure that we are in an alignment. Otherwise, and shout out to those who don't do those things, we're going to end up dealing with some unintended consequences and some very difficult discussions later on of
Right.
things that we weren't really considering. But back to your point about the marriage and what what your friends are saying, I think, in my opinion, number one, we know that's like the highest form of relationship you can offer, right? A man proposing to a woman, for our heterosexual couples out there.
Right.
That's the highest honor you can ask of a person. We know at the same time there's inherently going to be a lot of challenges going to come with that, not because it's marriage, because you have this label now and that dictates all this hardship. It's
Right.
because life is still happening at the same time. And
Yes.
then to your point, what you were just saying, you're trying to merge two people's lives, fully integrate them. Why
Hmm.
is dating easier? Because I'm still sort of living my own life. I'm not saying we coexist, but I'm still kind of doing my own thing. You're
Yeah.
more or less doing your own thing. When we decide to marry, these paths have to align now. So we have to talk about a lot of stuff to try to make sure that we are in an alignment. Otherwise, and shout out to those who don't do those things, we're going to end up dealing with some unintended consequences and some very difficult discussions later on of
Right.
things that we weren't really considering. So I
Right.
hope in your case that you had such a good example, you guys have been engaging maybe in some of those talks already. Is that
Absolutely.
fair
Oh,
to
yeah,
say?
definitely. We've been together for 7 years, so I think I've
Okay.
learned a lot about him, and he's learned a lot about me, vice versa, and, I know we haven't ever lived together, and I think, again, going back to, like, the culture and stuff, I've
Mhm.
never left home. So I think this is gonna be very big for me. It is gonna be.
Oh, it
Moving.
absolutely will.
Yeah, I know I'm gonna cry. I mean, I'm not gonna have mom's home cooked meals, grandma's food, you know what I mean? That's just one little side of it. But it's just the mere fact that I'm gonna be leaving and Tim, my fiance, he has told me, like once we're married, like there's no like running to mom and stuff when we have issues. Like I want us to be able to work through our problems together. Like that's
Mhm.
so big for me. We can't like go lock ourselves in our room. Like, and that's always been big between us. If there's any arguments, like we hash it out right then and there.
Mm.
And I think that's so crucial. Because there's times too, and he's learned this about me. Sometimes I might be like in a mood or upset about something, and he's just kind of like, you know, he can tell I'm upset, but I can't have him like guessing because sometimes he's like, "Well, what's wrong?" And it's like, like I almost want him to keep asking, which is terrible. And it's like, but he knows me by now, and then we'll talk about it and whatnot. But yeah, I just hope that I think we have established a lot of that communication between us,
Yeah.
and I know kind of what ticks him off and vice versa. And we
Good.
know like what means the most to each of us. And I feel like a lot of our values are very much shared. And that's why
Okay.
it has worked for so long. So I want to say that these 7 years, like as much as we used to make the joke, like, Tim, you're taking a long time, like, you know what's going on. Um, the timing was perfect. It was perfect. And I couldn't be more excited to embark on this journey with him because he's a very patient person. I'm more of the, I guess you could say like the firecracker of the relationship, the emotional one of the relationship. He's more of like my logical, keeps me grounded side, but he
Sure.
also has that sentimental side. I don't think I could be with someone that could not express their emotions and
Sure.
wasn't willing to become like, like a softie for me. Like he makes this joke, like if my friends knew how I was with you, like my reputation's out the window,
Yeah.
you know.
I mean,
And it's
that's
right.
no.
And
I
then
was
you're
gonna say,
go
that's
ahead.
pretty typical. I was gonna say that's
Right.
pretty typical for most guys. You know, like
Yeah.
we behave differently when you find somebody that you really want to be with, and you want to build a future with.
Yes.
There's maybe elements of how you are as a single man that you're gonna sort of soften up on because you're allowing the influence of that woman to, again, kind of be impressed upon you. So maybe there's some things you used to be a little harder on, and you're like, can be a
Yeah.
little easier.
Oh yeah, most definitely. And vice versa in the ways that he's kind of changed me. Like, now before I react and get angry about something, I kind of take a minute to be like, okay, was it really that serious? Because we've had those
Hmm.
conversations.
Wait. Say that again, please, for the audience.
He told me, he said, because when I've had moments where I get really worked up or I'm quick to get upset, I think twice and I take a moment to be like, is that really a big deal? And it's
Yes.
because of him that I reevaluate things, and that's the honest truth. Because it takes him a lot to get upset. Like, he's very slow to anger. I've always told him that.
Hmm.
Whereas me, I'm very reactive. And so it's like, Kiwi's my nickname, by the way. He's like, Kiwi. Kiwi, it's not a big deal. Like, some things are just not, no, I don't think they meant it that way, for example. Or,
Sure, sure.
I think you're kind of taking it too much to heart. And sure enough, like, at first I used to be like, what? Like, you're not. And he's like, I'm considering your feelings of 100%. Like, I understand why you feel this way, but I don't think it was meant that way. And so now when there's,
Mm.
situations, I think about that. And he's kind of like my little like conscience. I hear, you know what I mean? It's just, I
Yes.
can
No,
hear it in there.
that's beautiful, man. So many good points. So many good points. I'm trying to make sure these things are heard. So let
Thank
me
you.
let me
Yeah.
emphasize that point before I
Right.
jump to the other point that you just made.
Yeah.
So the PSA Kateri just said was you need to, I call it pausing. Pause before you try to respond more than react. Because
Right.
responding requires you to actually take some time and think and digest things. So
Absolutely.
you need to pause because if you know your emotions are heightened at that moment, you're probably not going to give the best response or you're not going to deliver in the best way
Mhm.
because your emotions are clouded. Okay.
Exactly.
So, but piggybacking on what you were saying, the second part, I think not only should we take that time to respond and make sure, we're hopefully making us a little less defensive, but you talked a lot about communication, which as a therapist, that's like my bread and butter, right? That's majority of the time when I'm working with a couple, that's what's going wrong. It's
Right.
dysfunctional communication. And another little thing I picked up that you said was sometimes we're not communicating the thing that actually bothers us,
Yes.
and we're kind of hoping, maybe expecting, maybe praying, who knows, that the person is just gonna pick up that thing, right?
Right.
I'm trying.
Exactly.
I've had women tell me over the years, like I'm trying to leave like the little breadcrumb trail, and like hopefully
Right.
you'll pick it up, right? And I say, listen, for all the ladies out there who might be listening, I say, listen, for us, okay, most guys I know, we're pretty direct,
Yeah.
meaning we would like to hear things exactly as you intend. So if you want us to do something, we want you to tell us. If you want us to listen to something, try something, whatever it is, we want you to like almost if you had to like I'm grabbing this mic, grab the face and say, "Hey, I need to do this."
Yes.
Because it's easier for us to then respond and say, "Okay, I don't know why she said that, but let me listen. Maybe there's something we can do about it."
1000%.
So that's really, really important. So the
Yeah.
communication aspect, I always like to try to give that note is
Right.
you can, to kind of give you a scenario.
Yeah.
I'm like, you can do it your way, which I'm not saying you are, but it could be like, I'm going to leave the trail and hopefully he'll figure it out. And
Right.
then I'm getting frustrated every day that that's not happening or every moment that that's not happening.
Mhm.
Or you could try my approach, grab their attention and say, "Hey, I need you to really listen here. Okay." And then if you see that you get the intended response or you get the intended outcome, then maybe you consider changing your approach. So you don't have to have all this built up frustration and maybe resentment with
Oh yeah.
your partner. Does that
Most
make sense?
definitely. Oh yeah, going off that point, like we have shifted because it used to kind of be like that at first, where I would leave that
Mm.
breadcrumb trail that you're talking about. And he literally told me those words where he was like, "Kiwi, I need you to just be direct about what it is that's bothering you. Like this,
Yeah.
I can't guess. I'm gonna get it wrong. I need you to kind of be direct with me." And he told me like that. Guys need to just be told. And sure enough, so I feel like in that way our dynamic has changed. Where now it's like, okay, I'm not gonna make him guess. I feel like it's just frustrating for the both of us. Like I'm expecting something of him, and he's frustrated because he
Mm.
can't figure it out. So now it's like I'm just telling you, okay, well this kind of bothered me, or this is why I'm upset. So
Yeah.
100%, like that's key. And when I hear communication, that's the first thing I think about. Like, don't have your partner guessing what's wrong. Like, sure,
Yes.
you might have your feelings, but eventually you should tell them, and don't just like have kind of. It's almost like I don't want to call it a game, but when
Hmm.
you're just kind of like, oh, let's make sure, let's have him guess and then see if he gets it right, and that's not.
Absolutely.
It's just not going to work. I've realized that in my own relationship. Like, you just have to be direct about it, and that's worked the best
Hmm.
for us, honestly. Just like be upfront. So
Yeah, especially to your point, when you think about the degree of challenge that will inherently happen as you try to merge your lives together, there's all these little details, Kateri, that
right.
you guys never had to think about, right?
Yeah.
And these aren't bad things. These are
Yeah.
just it's just a part of the process, right? Let me give you some experience. Not necessarily truth for you, but just some experience that I've had personally and things that I've learned from some of the clients I've spoken to.
Yes, please.
When you live with somebody, number one, it can bring out different aspects, obviously, that you probably might not have seen before. Because
Right.
normally, like, maybe I'm sleeping in my own bed majority of the time. So there's things about my behavior, my routines, what have you, that you have no reference point to. You're just like, I didn't know that you do these things. But then when
Yeah.
you come together, it's like all this stuff is going to come out, right? And you guys are going to have to learn how to navigate that. For
Right.
example, some guys are kind of dirty. So maybe they like leave clothes around. And
Oh yeah.
not me, I'm very clean, but let's just say, there's other people. And you might be like, I got to clean up after you. Like, hey, we have a hamper. Can you put your dirty socks in the hamper and not leave them by the front door? It's like little examples like that. Dirty dishes in the sink, taking the
Right.
trash out. There's
Yeah.
like a bunch of little small examples that happen, but this is why the communication is important. I
Yes.
promise this is always going in a coherent fashion.
Yeah.
When all these little issues are allowed to build up due to a lack of communication, then it turns into this big thing,
Right.
right?
Mhm.
And then if you extrapolate that, let it grow over time. I'm not saying you're going to do this, but just as an example, if you let that grow over time, that can threaten the stability of the relationship.
Oh yeah.
Like,
Definitely. I can see that being the
big,
case. Yeah.
big picture stuff. Big picture
I
stuff.
feel like that's in general, I think with anything, the more you let things build up, I feel like even with friendships and whatnot, you reach a point where it's like, okay, I've had it, and it's like, I
Mhm.
got to confront this. But it's like, you're absolutely right. Why let it grow to that degree where it does
Yeah.
put your relationship at risk and everything you guys have worked for up until that point and all the years together and stuff, only for it to like, blow up because there were certain things that just bothered you. And because you didn't address it in that moment, it grew to
Hmm.
this, explosive moment. So I 100%, I think going off your point, as I go into this journey of marriage, I'm really going to always keep that in mind and continue doing what we've been doing in a sense. Like, yes, the living, the way we
Good.
live and stuff may conflict, but just communicating everything, is just
Very
so important. I never want to be in that moment where I'm like just struggling because I didn't express what was bothering me. Like, no, and I think we've established that pretty well, and I hope it carries on into marriage. Like I said,
Yes.
where
I,
we'll
I
be.
mean, to be fair to you guys, I would think it would. I mean, if you got
Yeah,
7 years in with somebody, I don't think you're gonna completely flip the script just
no,
because
and
you go through a ceremony.
yeah, and he actually, so he has lived away from home, and that's another way that we differ. Like, he actually
Okay.
went away for work at one point. He lived in Seattle for like, it wasn't very long, like 2 months because of COVID. He
Oh,
had to come
okay.
back. But even in those 2 months, I was like, okay, this is hard. But he's lived on his own, and just kind of
Okay.
watching him, we would like FaceTime and stuff. I kind of saw like little things, and like now he actually lives with two of his best friends, their roommates. And I hear some of the things that, frustrate him or, you know, so I think like I kind of have learned a little bit. Of course, it's
Yeah.
going to be different when we live together,
Of
but also
course.
like something about him. Oh, I can't find my socks. Sometimes he's late. That's one of the things that we we argue about, right? It's like, you're always late. He's like, well, I can't find socks. And I'm like, where are your clothes? You know what I mean? So I can already see that being like, you
Little
just need to
thing.
put your clothes away. One, your clothes, his sleeping habits aren't the best. Like, I already have like this. I'm like, don't worry, I'm gonna regulate. It's all gonna be good. But
There you go. That's partnership, by the way.
yes,
That's real partnership because you find those ways, to complement each other. Like these are
right.
things that maybe like I'm not as good here, and I'm going to lean on to you for these skills that you have or these preferences that you're really strong in, and vice versa. For me, I think that
Right.
to me is what really makes relationships work. And then the stuff that's in between, that we even when you have been together as long as you have, right? There's always going to inherently be questions and concerns that will pop up that there's no way you can anticipate, right?
Yes.
Like
Hmm.
there's just it doesn't matter how long you could be together for 20 years. There's always going to be something
Right.
new because we all have to remember too that we're always growing. Who
Exactly.
you were 7 years ago in that relationship is not who Kateri is today. For Tim, same thing. He's not the same person. And so the goal is to like to grow, together as much as we can, like grow at least in similar directions. And then the changes that are happening to make sure we're communicating effectively about what those wants, needs, and desires are. so that we can continue to balance each other. Does that
Right.
make sense?
I'm gonna need you when we get married if we run into problems. I'm gonna be reaching out to you,
No,
aren't
you know what's interesting. I will share this because I was
you?
really happy about it. I mean, happy and bittersweet, but for the right reasons. So one of my clients, my first one actually, when I struck out on my own, she recently got engaged, and the reason why I was so happy about it was because they went through a lot in the last couple of years together. And of course, I'm not gonna spill all their beans, but
Yeah.
the point is, I felt fortunate enough that they allowed me to help them try to navigate this process of
Right.
trying to come, like they actually were separated for a period of time to try to figure out how to come back together, and then how to navigate this I don't know what your process was, if you want to share later, but how to navigate the process of like, how do you even discuss a proposal? How
Right.
do you even discuss when you're ready for it? What do you need to know before that time comes? Like, we went through all of it in excruciating detail, the three
Right.
of us. And I feel fortunate that they allowed me into that space because, thankfully, as I said, it happened. And it helped me learn a lot. I've never been married. It helped me learn a lot from that experience, to see what are some things that people, have hesitancies and concerns about, and what are some of the things maybe we should be addressing before you take that step. Not
Yes.
just, guy gets down on knee, been with you X amount of years. I'm really against assuming. I'm assuming I've been with her this long. So when I propose to Kateri, she's absolutely going to say yes. I know she's going to.
Right.
And you might be wrong, because she might have some reservations. There may be some stuff that need to get addressed first. And before you get your heart broken or set yourself up maybe to be disappointed, there's some things that I think should be discussed ahead of time. And we were fortunate enough, and I was fortunate enough, that they allowed me to work with them essentially for a majority of 2022 to really go through that entire process. It took almost all of 2022.
Wow.
And they had about the same amount of time you've been in your relationship together, like prior to that separation. So
That's
I
amazing.
I know it takes a lot of work, just
Yeah.
kind of being there and being able to witness it. And so
Right.
I think when you can get to that point to where you are, I think it's truly an awesome experience to be able to feel comfortable and confident that you really want to go through this journey of life with them.